Most women think the way to win a man's heart is by saying all the right things. But high-value women, they don't talk to impress. They talk to inspire, to challenge, and to be remembered. The way she speaks doesn't just get his attention, it makes him feel something he can't forget. When a high-value woman speaks, she's not trying to impress. She's not scrambling to say the right thing or be liked. She doesn't use her words to beg for attention or over-explain who she is. Instead, her communication is rooted in self-assurance and clarity. She understands that every word, every tone, every question she asks is an extension of her value. She talks with intention. She listens with presence, and that's why her words carry weight. She doesn't need to dominate the conversation to feel seen. She knows the power of silence. She lets pauses happen. She doesn't rush to fill them because she isn't uncomfortable with herself. When she asks a question, it's not random, it's thoughtful. It's designed to learn something real about the person in front of her. She speaks not to perform, but to connect. There's no chasing in her voice. She doesn't need to prove she's interesting or funny or worthy of time. That truth is already anchored inside her, and it echoes in every exchange. Men notice this difference immediately. When most people speak from a place of insecurity, it shows. They interrupt, they overshare, they seek approval with every word. But when a woman talks with intent, there's a calm certainty that makes people lean in. She doesn't talk about her life to impress someone. She shares because she wants someone to understand her world. She doesn't ask about a man's past to test him. She's curious. She doesn't use sarcasm or games to hide her feelings. She's direct without being aggressive. This kind of communication creates a shift in dynamics. It's no longer about who's chasing who or who's winning the conversation. It becomes about connection. A man doesn't feel interrogated or manipulated. He feels seen, and that's powerful. But he also feels that he's talking to someone who knows herself deeply. She doesn't rely on compliments to feel good. She doesn't need a man to fill the silence. She's already full. That inner fullness is reflected in how she chooses her words. Even when she's hurt or unsure, she still speaks with intention. She doesn't lash out to feel powerful. She doesn't ghost to avoid conflict. She addresses what's happening with grace. She asks for what she needs without begging. She's not afraid to say no, but she does it with kindness. Her communication isn't perfect, but it's honest. And more than anything, it's rooted in the belief that she deserves to be heard without having to shout. A high-value woman doesn't waste time making assumptions about what a man is thinking. She knows that guessing leads to misunderstanding, and misunderstanding leads to frustration. Instead of reacting based on fears or insecurities, she asks questions. Clear, calm, curious questions. She doesn't accuse, she investigates. If something feels off, she doesn't immediately decide he's losing interest or playing games. She pauses, observes, and then communicates. Her strength lies in her ability to stay grounded in what's real, not what her mind is spinning in circles trying to predict. If she's getting to know someone, she's not scanning for red flags based on her past. She's not projecting old pain onto a new connection. She leans in with awareness, not suspicion. She might say, "What made you choose that path?" instead of assuming he lacks ambition. Or, "What does commitment look like for you?" rather than assuming he's afraid of relationships. These questions open the door for authentic conversations because they're not traps. They come from a place of wanting to understand, not wanting to control. Men notice this. They feel less pressure and more permission to be themselves. Most people don't ask real questions. They assume, they judge, they categorize. A high-value woman separates herself by her willingness to listen without preparing a counterattack. She's not trying to catch someone doing the wrong thing. She's trying to learn. what's true, so she can make aligned choices for herself. And because she's not afraid to ask questions, she also invites honesty from others. People feel safer around her, not because she's easy to please, but because she's emotionally mature enough to handle the truth. In a relationship, this skill becomes even more powerful. Instead of jumping to conclusions when something's wrong, she communicates. If she senses distance, she doesn't spiral into silence or passive aggression. She might say, "I noticed some space between us lately. What's going on in your world?" She uses words to build bridges, not walls. And even when she doesn't like the answer, she still prefers clarity over confusion. That's where her power lies. She's not clinging to a fantasy of who someone could be. She's engaged with who they really are. She's also careful not to interrogate. Her questions don't come out rapid fire or loaded with emotion. They're intentional, calm, and open-ended. That tone matters. It shows that she's not trying to dominate the interaction. She's trying to deepen it. When a man speaks to her, he feels heard, because she doesn't jump to assumptions halfway through his sentence. She waits, she listens, and then she responds with something that shows she's present. This habit of asking instead of assuming doesn't make her weak. It makes her powerful, because it allows her to navigate relationships with clarity, not chaos. A high-value woman doesn't hide from her emotions, and she doesn't let them control the conversation either. She knows that how she communicates her feelings is just as important as the feelings themselves. Emotional confidence means being aware of what she feels, owning it, and expressing it in a way that invites connection rather than conflict. She doesn't explode when she's hurt, and she doesn't shut down when she's afraid. Instead, she stays steady. Her tone stays grounded even when the topic is sensitive. That composure doesn't mean she's cold, it means she's in control. And she's excited. She shares it without worrying if it's too much. When she's disappointed, she says it without guilt or blame. If something bothers her, she doesn't hope the other person will magically notice. She communicates it clearly, not with anger or passive aggression, but with presence. She might say, "That made me feel left out," rather than throwing sarcasm or giving the silent treatment. She uses direct language that speaks to the heart of the issue without making it an attack. This type of emotional confidence shifts the way men respond to her. Most people are used to defensiveness or emotional games, but when a woman communicates her feelings in a calm and grounded way, it disarms the other person. It creates a safe space for vulnerability. It lets the man know she's not trying to manipulate him. She's inviting him into a deeper, more mature conversation. And because she's not reactive, he can be honest without bracing for an explosion. She also doesn't need to explain every feeling in the moment. She gives herself space when necessary. If she's upset, she might take a breath before responding. She knows the difference between reacting quickly and responding wisely. That pause, that moment of reflection, is where her power lives. She doesn't say things she'll regret just to feel better for a second. She speaks from clarity, not from chaos. And when she does speak, it lands with meaning because it's coming from a calm center. She doesn't use emotion as a weapon or a strategy. She doesn't cry to guilt someone into staying. She doesn't act cold just to seem strong. Her strength is in her ability to be real without losing balance. She can say, "I miss you," without sounding needy. She can say, "I need space," without making it a punishment. Everything she communicates is an extension of her self-respect. And even in conflict, that self-respect holds the conversation together. Her emotional confidence isn't about always being in a good mood. It's about allowing her feelings to exist without letting them run the show. It's about being honest without being harsh. It's about speaking her truth without needing to be right. That energy is magnetic because it's rare. It shows a man that she's not looking for someone to fix her. She's looking for someone who can meet her where she already stands. A high-value woman doesn't scream her boundaries or demand respect with ultimatums. She communicates her standards through the way she lives and speaks, not through long lectures or emotional outbursts. Her words are clear, calm, and consistent. She doesn't argue about what she won't tolerate. She simply doesn't engage in it. If someone crosses a line, she doesn't start a war about it. She just steps back. Her silence in certain moments is more powerful than someone else's raised voice. That's because her boundaries are not threats. They're expressions of self-worth. When she speaks, her tone reflects what she values. She might say something simple like, "That doesn't really work for me," and it holds weight because she doesn't waver. She doesn't need to over-explain why she feels disrespected. She states it once and lets her actions follow. If someone keeps pushing, she doesn't argue. She distances herself. People start learning very quickly that this isn't someone who needs to be convinced of her value. She already knows it, and that knowledge is woven into how she talks to people. This way of communicating creates natural boundaries. It's not about control, it's about clarity. She never has to say, "I'm a high-value woman who deserves better," because everything about her presence says it for her. When a man is with her, he picks up on this fast. He knows that respect isn't optional, it's the entry point. And because she leads with calm certainty, he doesn't feel like he's being tested all the time. He feels like he's being invited into a space where honesty and maturity matter. She doesn't lecture someone on how to treat her. She gives them the opportunity to show who they are. And she pays attention. She doesn't hold grudges, but she learns quickly. If someone apologizes and repeats the same behavior, she doesn't try to fix them. She makes a quiet exit. That decision is already built into how she carries herself. There's no drama, no scenes, just a consistent pattern of walking away from what doesn't align. Her communication also reflects what she's available for. She doesn't respond to last-minute messages from someone who only reaches out when it's convenient. She doesn't laugh at disrespectful jokes just to avoid tension. She doesn't say yes when she means no. And the beauty of it is that she doesn't need to explain these choices. They are already understood by the way she speaks, what she allows, and what she walks away from. This consistency builds trust. People may not always like her boundaries, but they respect them. And the men who are emotionally ready for someone like her find comfort in the predictability of her values. There's no guessing game. There's no emotional roller coaster. There's just a calm, steady line that shows where she stands and what she'll allow into her life. That's what makes her rare. That's what makes her unforgettable. A high-value woman doesn't hand out compliments to get something in return. When she acknowledges a man, it's deliberate, thoughtful, and sincere. She's not using praise as a strategy to be liked or to win someone over. She doesn't throw out flattering lines just to keep a man interested. Instead, she waits until something genuinely moves her, and then she speaks. That's why when she gives a compliment, it doesn't feel like a routine exchange. It feels like a moment that matters. It stays with him because it's rare and it's real. She might notice something subtle, like how he treats the waiter, or how he talks about his goals. And when she speaks on it, she's not trying to stroke his ego. She's reflecting something meaningful back to him. It might sound like, "I really respect how focused you are when you talk about what you're building." That one sentence holds more weight than 10 shallow compliments about how he looks, because it speaks to who he is, not just what he shows. And that's where her influence grows. She sees beyond the surface, and she speaks to what others overlook. This kind of compliment also raises the emotional temperature in a conversation. Men are so used to either being praised for the obvious or not being seen at all. So when a woman speaks to their effort, their depth, or their character, it stands out. It doesn't come off as manipulative or needy. It feels like recognition. And recognition is powerful. It motivates, it bonds, and it builds trust. But she never uses it as a tool to manipulate feelings. She offers it with no strings attached. She also doesn't compliment constantly. She's not afraid of silence. She knows that when you say something all the time, it loses meaning. She's not in a hurry to keep the vibe positive by overdoing praise. In fact, her restraint adds value to her words. When she speaks, it's intentional. And because of that, the people around her actually pay attention. A man knows that if she says something kind or admiring, it's coming from a place of authenticity, not desperation. She's also aware of the energy she brings with her words. Her tone carries warmth, but it doesn't drip with expectation. She can say something beautiful and still walk away with her power intact. That balance is rare. It shows that she's not giving compliments to be accepted. She's offering them as a reflection of her awareness and appreciation. There's no hidden agenda. There's no performance. Just truth spoken at the right moment. Even when she receives compliments, she doesn't gush or deflect. She simply receives them with grace. And that shows she understands value, both hers and his. That exchange builds respect. It creates a space where both people feel seen, not sold to. That's the kind of energy that lingers. That's the kind of energy that elevates everything around it. A high-value woman understands the power of keeping certain parts of herself sacred. She doesn't rush to tell her whole life story within the first few conversations. She doesn't treat vulnerability like a performance or oversharing like a shortcut to intimacy. Instead, she lets people earn access to her world one layer at a time. This creates a natural sense of mystery, not because she's playing games, but because she values her story enough not to give it all away to someone she barely knows. That mystery is magnetic. It invites curiosity, not confusion. She lets the other person wonder, and that wonder builds attraction. She doesn't need to talk about her past relationships to seem deep, and she doesn't unload her emotional baggage in hopes of being understood. If a topic is personal, she chooses when and how to reveal it, and if she senses someone hasn't earned that space, she holds it back, not with coldness, but with discernment. That restraint is powerful. It shows that she doesn't just talk to connect, she connects with intention. The more a man listens to her, the more he wants to know, because every time she shares, it feels like a gift, not a transaction. When she's in conversation, she asks thoughtful questions, but she doesn't immediately mirror the same level of depth just to make things feel balanced. She stays true to what feels right for her in the moment. She knows that emotional intimacy isn't something that's forced. It's something that unfolds, and she's in no rush. That unhurried energy creates tension in the best way. It draws people in without overwhelming them. It gives space for real connection to develop, not just emotional fireworks that burn out fast. Even in group settings, she carries a sense of quiet power. She doesn't need to dominate the conversation or constantly be the center of attention. She listens more than she speaks, and when she does speak, people pay attention. Her words have impact because they're not constant. And in the silence she leaves behind, there's intrigue. People want to know what she's thinking, what she feels, what she's not saying. As the essence of mystery, it's not about hiding who you are. It's about revealing yourself slowly and intentionally. She's not afraid to say, "I'd rather talk about that another time," or "I'm still processing that part of my life." Those boundaries don't make her seem guarded, they make her seem grounded. She's not trying to be a mystery for attention. She just lives in a way that honors her own timing. And that quiet confidence is rare. It separates her from those who talk too much too soon, hoping to create closeness without letting it grow naturally. The beauty of her mystery is that it keeps the connection alive. The man she's talking to doesn't feel like he's figured her out in one sitting. He feels like every conversation is a step deeper. Every moment reveals something new, and there's always more to discover. That kind of presence lingers long after the words are spoken. A high-value woman doesn't communicate to impress, control, or convince. She communicates to connect, to understand, and to be understood. Every word she speaks is rooted in self-respect. She doesn't chase clarity through chaos. She creates it through calm confidence. She asks instead of assumes, listens instead of performs, and expresses instead of explodes. Her boundaries are unshakable, not because she forces them, but because she lives by them. Her compliments are rare but sincere, and her mystery isn't a game. It's a reflection of the depth she protects. She shows up with intention, speaks with grace, and holds space with quiet strength. And it's that presence, that rare balance of warmth and wisdom, that makes her unforgettable in the heart and mind of any man she speaks to.